Okay, we're gonna make a bookmark. So I took a piece of faux leather vinyl, and I clipped it together. I don't have fancy sewing clips, so we use what we got. I've got my needle in the right hand position. Let me make you guys straight. So I know that because this is the 1/4 inch line, I'm going to sew to the right here. I'm going to get a pretty straight line. And then what I like to do to really make sure that nothing shifts while I'm sewing is I take a handy dandy magnet. I make all different kinds of magnets. I also have one that looks like, one that looks like this. And you can kind of put it there. This isn't as sticky, but you know, we're gonna use this one. I like to call it my chess one because it looks like a little chess piece to me. So I like to clip where I'm gonna stitch so that if the clip leaves a little indentation, it doesn't show once we're done. So we're just gonna get our stuff up under the presser foot here. And I don't like to start right at the corner. I'm going to start about 1 inch in, and I'm just going to line myself up. We're going to put our presser foot down, and then I'm going to take this first clip out of there because we don't need it. Once we're under the presser foot and everything is straight, we're going to adjust, make sure that when this is straight, you know, the machine wants to pull straight. So all we got to do is line it up. I'm going to hold my thread tails, and my machine has a really fancy knotting feature. If yours doesn't, just sew a few stitches forward and a few stitches back. No big deal. And then we're just going to sew. I like to sew slow. My machine will go really fast, but I like to, it has a speed regulator, so I set it low. And I just kind of hold it up against here, up against my magnet. And then once it gets past where the magnet's going to hold it, I just stick my finger there. No big deal. And you just go until you're about this far from the end. There you go. Check it. I think I could go one more. Okay, and then I'm going to lift up my presser foot. I probably should have removed this clip a little sooner, but you know, here we are. And then you just turn it. Okay? Now when I put my presser foot down, it's a little higher up in the front. So what you can do is take a spare piece of fabric or whatever you're sewing and put it behind there, or if you have this type of, this is just a plain presser foot, but it has this little button on it that locks it level with the plate on the sewing machine. So I like to do that just to make sure we don't get any wiggling. And then since this is not going to stay on my magnet very long, I just stick my finger there. And sew. This hand is not doing anything. I'm resting it here to help make sure we stay straight, but I'm not putting any downward pressure, because when you put downward pressure on it, it spins, which I can show you guys in another video if you want to see what happens when you put downward pressure. This hand is guiding, but you don't want to cause a swivel, so be careful with that. I'm lifting my presser foot. Looks like I've got enough room to go one more stitch, so I'm just going to up, down. Now we're closer to the edge where we want to be. So we're going to spin. Oops. I need to remove this clip. Probably don't need any of these clips anymore because we've got enough of this sewn down that we're not going to wiggle, but you know, we'll leave them there. Again, put the foot down. It looks like I'm a hair in from the edge, a hair closer to the edge than I was before, but it's not really going to be noticeable, so we're just going to roll with it. I'm just going to make sure that these threads are out of the way so we don't cause a knot under our machine. And whatever straight is, just roll. Now, we're here in the end, so we want to try to line up whatever our last stitch is before we swivel so that it'll end up here. So let's see, are we going to be able to do that? Make sure the threads are out of the way. So it looks like, can you guys see, our needle is here, and if we sew straight, our thread is going to end up right there. So we are good to go. Happy when that actually works out. It doesn't always. So then I like to cross over. So now we've sewn a few stitches past where our knot was originally. And I'm going to back stitch it a little bit. And then my machine has a knot feature, so for extra measure I'm going to knot it. And that's all there is. So then you take it over here. Side of your machine will have for some people it's kind of on the back edge. Cut the threads. There you go. Now you have your threads cut. So you can pull them to one side or you can just trim them the way they are, which is what I'm going to do. Now, whoopsie, sorry you got blurry. I like to lay my scissors flat against whatever it is so that the threads are as tightly cut as they can be, but they're still cut the length of the width of the scissors. So I'll show you from the side what that means. See how that's the width of the scissors? There. But when you look at it, if you're not looking at it from the side and inspecting it, you don't really see it. So that is how you sew a bookmark.